Okay, I think we're going to get started. So welcome, and I see some familiar faces and a few that I will know after today. My name is Sheryl Copeland, and I'm a counselor in the counseling center in Foss, second floor. Has anyone ever been to the counseling center? Yeah. Has anyone ever been to the new counseling center? No, because it's not open yet. Yeah, it was a trick question. Yeah, it was a trick question. Soon to be open. So we'll definitely invite you all for our grand opening when that happens. But we're located on Foss, second floor. We're right now temporarily located in the advising center, which maybe many of you have been to previously. And so we provide free mental health services for students. There's a blue handout that kind of shares a little bit about what we do. We also have a fairly robust website that you can also check out. If you go to the search bar, always on our website, the Shoreline website, if you go up to the search bar in the upper right-hand corner of the website, you can type in Counseling Center. It's the first thing that pops up. If you ever want to look for information or share it with a student, you can send that link, and we'll talk a little bit about that a little later today. I also support the care team, which is what we're here to talk about today. What is the care team, and how do we support you and our campus and students? So currently I'm chairing the care team, and then I also teach part-time. So I too am in the classroom and online, teach in both modalities. I teach at another college as well on a Saturday all-day class, and those are always fun. So I also have experience like you teaching in the classroom, and both online and in face-to-face. So it's a little bit about me. But I do like to find out who's here. Just quickly, who you are, what do you do? We might not have all faculty in the room. There's other employee groups come to this training as well. And one thing you do to take care of yourself, because we are helpers, whether you know it or not. One thing you do to take care of yourself. I'll start here.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name's Claire Putney. I teach in the visual arts building, specifically studio art. And I've been here about 5 years, but I recently got a tenure track position.
Congrats.
First year,
Yeah.
And one thing I do to take care of myself is I spend a lot of time in my yard, outside.
Good.
In my yard. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And you are?
Nicholas Wilson. I'm also at the Visual Arts Center, teaching studio art courses part-time for drawing and painting. I've been here about 3 years, I guess, and I also, whenever I find myself overwhelmed, I take a walk. I take really long walks. I don't time it, I don't schedule it, I just kind of wander until I feel refreshed.
Like it's time to turn back. Yeah. Great. Thank you, Nicholas.
My name's Bob Thompson. I teach psychology here. I've been here now for 25 years. And I think the first thing on my list would be I religiously get 8 hours of sleep a night.
Good for you. Thank you. In the back?
Yeah, hi, I'm Dave Boyle. I teach ESL. I've been here about 25 years as well, and I do yoga.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. Got a lot people here that have long longevity here. That's awesome. Hi, you are?
Barry Ehrlich. I teach music appreciation part-time, online only.
Okay. And what do you do for self-care? Walk. Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Hi.
My name is Keith Smith, and I teach manufacturing classes. And this is my 14th year here. And to take care of myself, I usually have a pretty regular routine of yoga classes in the morning, which I think really sets me straight.
Yeah, it sets the tone for the day. That's great. Thank you. Hi.
I'm Julia Paulson, and I'm a faculty librarian here. I've been here about 1.5 years at Shoreline. I also do yoga, which sometimes may just mean lying on the floor with my legs up in the air.
Great.
Which is great.
Great. And anyone on Zoom want to introduce themselves? You're muted. I mean, you can unmute yourself if you want to talk. Does anyone want to share who they are, who's here?
Hello, my name is Lakeisha Phillips. I'm all the way out in Federal Way, and I teach online the Children's Advocacy Study classes. I've been there about 5 years.
Great. And what do you do for self-care?
I do like hot yoga gardening. Last year, I successfully grew like 6 whole tomatoes, which was a big deal.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great. Anyone else out there on Zoom that wants to introduce themselves?
Sure. My name is David Baldwin. I teach in the biology department. I've been here about 12 or 13 years, and I spend time outside. I kind of mix up my teaching load with actually building gardens. So that's kind of my other side of my life. So me and the dog and sometimes the kids are outside a lot.
Great. Great time of year for that right now. Perfect.
I'm Meredith Ford, and I'm a reference librarian in the library, obviously. I've been here since January. And for self-care, I like to have little dance parties when things are getting a little too stressful.
Yes, awesome. Well, welcome to Shoreline.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ann Laird. I'm coming to you from Central New York. I teach online business technology classes, and I love the outdoors, love going for walking, and I really try hard to get 8 hours of sleep every night.
Great.
Hi, I'm Emily Howardsher. I teach in the nursing program. I've been at Sheryl for 2 years. And for self-care, similar stuff, gardening, hiking, walking, exercise, etc.
Great. Thank you, Emily. Any last people?
Sure. Hi, I'm Lauren Sanders from the math department, and I sing in a choir and play piano, so music also self-care for me.
Great. Thank you. Did we get everyone? Oh, hi, Claudia.
I teach in the Health Informatics and Information Management program, and I've been here almost 20 years. And for self-care, I'm gardening and outdoor activities, plus an avid traveler.
Great. Thank you. I think we got everyone, but if not, so I know we spent a few minutes doing that, but I and our campus community are asking people to care. And when we care about students, we have to care about ourselves too. I think that when that's paramount, that we take care of ourselves. We do a lot of hard work here. We're asked to meet a lot of demands, like competing demands, and so I think it's really important, and the care team thinks it's really important that you all, that all of us also take care of ourselves, because that's how we're going to do our best work with students. And sometimes when we have students who are in distress or maybe distressing, if we're taking care of ourselves, that goes a little better than if we're feeling depleted and not 100%. Doesn't always work out the best. So I'd like to open with that. It's also a great strategy to use with your students when they're feeling overwhelmed, not sure where to turn, asking them those questions like, what are the things that you do for self-care? They may sometimes tell you things that you don't want to hear in terms of it might not be your choice of self-care for them, but at the same time, finding out more about what they might be experiencing. So I wanted to talk a little bit about why we are working so hard this year, especially to create a culture of care, to start talking about a culture of care. I think Shoreline's always had a culture of care. I think, we as employees care about our students and care about each other, but we're formalizing it a bit more and giving more tools to people to help support students. Originally, when I've been at Shoreline about a little over 4 years. I came from Edmonds Community College, and I was at Everett Community College before then. And so when I came to Shoreline, it was more of a threat assessment stance, that there was a team of people that would meet when there was a student or a person on campus that maybe posed a threat in some way, or, and they would determine whether or not, that was accurate, and then proceed in taking some kind of action. I also know that it was, people would call the counseling center a lot, like, hi, I got this student, I don't know what to do. Or they'd call the dean's office. When we had a dean of students, they would call the dean's office and, try to, share their concern about students. Fortunately, the college started to, recognize that we need to be maybe more preventative. And so we slowly switched over to more of a behavioral intervention team. So we were trying to get ahead of before things became really concerning or more of a threat. And that is something that's been happening across the nation. Campuses across the nation have developed these behavior intervention teams to hear about students of concern rather than having to deal with it on your own in your office. And it's not to say that you don't do beautiful work managing students and helping them and guiding them, but sometimes it can be a lot, or the student needs more than just one person to support them. And so we, up until about a year ago, we were Shoreline's behavior intervention team. And then we, really went through some training and looking at promising practices and hearing more from people on campus. We recognized that that name was a bit too clinical, and really our ethos is care, that we care about students. This isn't some trip to the principal's office, no one's in trouble. We want people to feel safe. We want them to feel like, we're here to help you and not be concerned about behavior intervention team. It sounds so formal and kind of scary. So we are, about a year ago, we morphed into Shoreline's care team. And so really then thinking about how do we create this culture of care? How do we help employees understand what our purpose is, and how do we introduce a new reporting tool rather than calling the counseling center or calling now the VP's office about your concerns or your dean, which you can do. We also want to formalize this a bit more and ask that people document, when they interact with a student they may be concerned about. And it could be that a student shares something with you, and we'll talk about some of the things that you've experienced, or it could be something you observe, that, we'll talk more about what is it that what I should share with the campus. What do you want to know? So we'll talk about that today a bit. So you all have a handout that just gives a brief synopsis of Shoreline's care team. And at the top, and for those that are on Zoom, if you look at our webpage, which I have up, you'll notice that we're on Shoreline Care Team webpage, and there it lists our purpose and the things that we do. And I'm not going to go through all 6 bullets of what we do, but I'm going to share with you in a nutshell what we do, and then you certainly could refer to this document or look online to find out more. But basically, we're a team made up of about 10 people from all over campus. Different departments include student accessibility services, the dean that oversees student conduct, the counseling center, safety and security, international, student life, multicultural center, advising. A lot of different areas are represented on our care team, and we meet weekly to discuss students of concern, students that maybe you have shared with us that you might be worried about. Or maybe you've even interacted with a student and said, hey, we have this team on campus, and I'm going to refer you, for some reach out. And so we meet weekly, and we basically do what is listed here at the top of our website and at the top of this handout. We're here to identify and assess and support students who display behavior that might be concerning or share something that makes you worry about them. It could be that they're, I'll let you guys generate some ideas before I go there. But that's what I'm going to ask. Before I talk more about our purpose, our main goal is to identify and address concerning behavior. What kind of behavior have you observed from your students? Or what has a student shared with you that made you concerned about them? Do you have examples over your time, both from Zoom land and here in the room? You might need a second to think about that. But what have students shared with you, or what have you observed that made you think someone else might want to know about this? Yeah?
A male student getting too close to a female student.
Okay, so maybe student interactions. Okay. You had your hand raised.
Well, we had a very disturbed student in the music department 10 years ago who was damaging pianos, pouring water into the pianos in the practice rooms.
Okay.
Literally severely damaged our pianos. And I reported it to the vice president of student services, who did nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe some vandalism. And this would be the place where you report that. I mean, and I'll talk more specifically about that. What other things have you noticed about students or observed, or maybe they've shared with you? Yeah.
I had a young woman come to me and felt she was being, was getting too much attention from a particular male student in my class. And she showed me some texts, and I could see that it was a serious situation, so I brought it up before the threat assessment team.
Yeah, so some concerning communications between students. Yeah, yeah.
A student who's totally withdrawn, just kind of sits there and...
So withdrawn in class? Yeah, what does that look like?
He sat totally low, never talked to anybody, wouldn't answer the questions I asked him, things like that.
Anyone from out on Zoom? Any behaviors or things that students have shared with you that made you concerned for them? Make sure I didn't mute myself. Not hearing anyone, so I guess. Okay. What else? Yes.
Social anxieties and depression.
Yes.
A lot of students expressing that as a reason for not engaging or missing class or whatever.
So maybe they're sharing some mental health concerns or some physical concerns, even. Yeah. What else? Yes.
One student that expressed a lack of comfort or welcome at home, living with relatives, but it was a very tense relationship that was very restrictive of their social life or all things.
Yeah, so some concerns off campus, with family, friends, other relationships. Yeah. Have students expressed things around food insecurity or homelessness? Yeah. How about students that just disappear? Anyone have students that maybe they were there the first 5-6 weeks and then they just disappear? Yeah. Or they've turned in assignments very consistently and then towards the end of the quarter stop. Yeah. So lots of reasons why we might have concern about a student for sure. So yeah, those are the things we want to know about and more. My thoughts are on that is I err on the side of caution. To file a report, it does take a little bit of time, not too much. And if for some reason, we feel like it's more low level, and I'll talk about kind of what happens after you file a report in a little bit, it may be more of documentation. But if you have concern, if you think, maybe someone else on campus could help this student, and I'm not quite sure who that is, that would be a great time to file a report.
What if you think someone has a learning disorder, but you don't feel qualified to diagnose that person?
Yeah, again, you may, we have a well-rounded multidisciplinary team there. So if you had a concern about a student, again, you're observing and noting behaviors. I'll talk a bit about, what that looks like and how you want to characterize that. Again, if you have a concern, you're just not sure. Many faculty in particular will notice behaviors in class. They're not, again, we're not in a position to be clinicians or diagnose. And we may just think, there's something's, I'm noticing it. And it seems like it may be impacting the student, or maybe it's impacting the classroom, So yeah, those are definitely reasons for, why you might want to file a report. So looking at, sort of our purpose, we welcome any information. We're here to help identify what that might be. We're here to assess, and we're here to support you. I want to stress that we're not only here to support students, we're here to support employees on campus. Oftentimes myself, I may have teaching in the classroom myself, I often, have student behavior that I'm, try to manage and think it works for a while and then it doesn't work anymore. Has anyone ever experienced that? Like, your techniques are working for a while and then for whatever reason, as people get more comfortable, they don't work as often. And so I love the idea that I have someone to consult with, to say, hey, I got this going on. And I know that we do this with our colleagues and, other people that we trust and, can express ourselves with. But again, we're here to support you. It may be that a student is taking a lot of time, could be taking a lot of energy, could be disruptive in the class, could be impacting other people. A lot of times we talk to students about intention versus impact. Students are often like, I never intended to be disruptive or be disrespectful, and then we talk about how people might be experiencing them and what are some strategies for how they might manage. We often connect students to resources, both on campus and off campus. And again, I want to stress that you don't have to be the only person that helps the student. I myself, as a counselor in the counseling center, don't want to be somebody's only person. I want people to network. I want people to have many supports, because there may be a day I'm not here, right? The day I'm not available. I might be sick or have a sick child at home and can't be here. And I want students to be comfortable to go elsewhere as well. Create that web for them, that support system for them. So we are definitely, the care team's definitely here for students. I mean, that is our primary focus, but in addition to that, it is how do we support employees as well, because we are all doing very hard work, very rewarding work, and often, we've got students that are facing a lot of barriers and a lot of challenges, and it is impeding, their ability to be academically successful, and our goal here is for them to be successful, right? So, again, looking at sort of, I'll talk more about what happens when someone files a report, and that will sort of address sort of some of the pieces that we do. But we're trying to do a lot of training and education. The Counseling Center offers mental health first aid training. We do other workshops around boundary setting, classroom management. We do lots of consultation. If you ever have a concern about a student and you're just not quite sure where to turn, you can call, and we can talk about it before you file a report. And then I'll probably send you a link that also says, could you file a care team report too? And the great thing about now with the care team, for about a year or so, we've had a mechanism, a reporting tool. So everything goes into one database so that we can track information, we can track students. People often make a report, and maybe someone else on campus has also made a report. Or maybe somebody reported something they observed at the beginning of the quarter, and then we get another report about 3 weeks later, and then another report, towards the end of the quarter. So then we're able to note there's a theme, there's a pattern, there's a theme, maybe this, needs to be addressed on a different level. Oftentimes, employees manage concerns. They give students information, they share resources, and you are encouraged to just document that. Like, this is what I experienced with the student, or this is what they shared, and this is how I followed up with them. This is where I referred them, and this is, I gave them what they needed, and we just note that as an FYI. But again, sometimes someone else, it may be happening somewhere else on campus, and then we're noting sort of those themes and patterns. So I'm really happy to see that we have this centralized mechanism now, because it used to be, again, people would call multiple offices, right? And we weren't always talking to each other or knowing that information was being shared. And now it's all being centralized, and people are, a group of people are able to, see that sort of at a 100-foot view. So I talked a little bit who serves on the care team, but we very much strive to be a multidisciplinary team, have a lot of different partners from different areas of the campus who interact with students. So often when we receive a report, somebody on our team might know that student. It's more often than not that somebody will say, I know that student, or I've worked with them. And that might be the way that we touch base with that student. It's not necessarily going to be the counseling center calling out, because that sometimes can be worrisome to students. And so it may be that a student has a relationship with an advisor, or they have a relationship with someone at International, or they have a relationship, elsewhere on campus, and we use that relationship to connect with the student. We don't want students to feel overwhelmed. We don't want students to feel like they're in trouble. Students sometimes do behavior that needs to stop, and we're great about resetting expectations and finding strategies for success. But most often students are, when we do reach out to them in some way, students are most often relieved and just grateful that someone cares and that maybe they will have help in getting guidance to where they need to get those resources. The other great thing that I love about the reporting mechanism is that within a few years we're going to have, I keep moving. I'm moving the wrong one. We keep being able to collect and assess data and track information. And in a few years, we're going to have some really nice analytics about what are the behaviors that we're seeing, what are the concerns that students are sharing with us, and where might be the gaps be in service and support that our campus needs, that many campuses need, to be able to best support students and be more preventative rather than having to use the intervention. So I'm excited, with a couple years of data or a few years of data, we might be able to see some of that as well. So what I liked when I heard about people's concerns is that everyone had different perspectives. Everyone, I'm guessing people have different thresholds and tolerances for different behavior. And so to just really think about that we all do have a different lens, we all have a different perspective. And when you are thinking about, is this something that I should share with the campus? Thinking about that to err on the side of caution, that you may be just sharing information as a point of FYI, that I'm just wanting to document this, I've managed the situation, the student, is not exhibiting, that concern anymore, or that behavior, and again, we will reach out, we always respond, back to you to see how we can support you. It may be the student, and then typically we'll file it, and we'll move on to the next person. But to think about that, I always say to myself, I never want to leave campus wondering, should I have told someone that information? What if I don't come back for a few days? Is there, could there be some, kind of ramifications from that? So thinking about that for yourself. All right. So what I'd like to do now is share the reporting tool with people, because that often generates questions. When should I report? How do I use this? What should I share with you? And then I'll talk a little bit about the process of what happens after people file a care report. Are there any questions from people out online? I'm going to take that as no. All right. So let me close this so we can see. So I'm on the care team page, and I think people can, I'm driving my laptop. I have to not look at that. You'll see this giant button, report a concern. So if you go to the college's webpage, and in that search bar up at the top of every college webpage, there's the search bar up here. If you just come to the main page, type in care, and the first search result will be the care team page. So you can click on that. And there's a giant button. Also, a couple things I'll note about the web page before I hit that giant button. My direct information is here as the chair of the care team. If you ever need consultation, don't hesitate to call. I'm happy to, check in about stuff. I'm happy to, if you have concerns about what to write in the report, maybe it's something you're not sure if you should share electronically, always give me a phone call. I'm happy to mitigate that and figure out what's the best way to manage that. You also can call Derek Levy. How many of you know Derek by chance? He's our now dean. I have to update the webpage. He's now our dean of student support, or student success and support. and he oversees a lot of different areas. He is our conduct officer, and he also helps support the efforts of the care team. So if for some reason I wasn't available, he's also a really good person to contact. He also manages academic integrity or dishonesty, so you may sometimes cross paths with him on those matters. So those are the two people. If you needed to consult about a student you may be concerned about, you certainly could start there. You're also welcome down at the bottom for people on Zoom. There is a list of people who are serving on the care team. If you have a relationship with another one of these people on the care team, you're also welcome to, contact them and consult. They will definitely give you, some of you may work with specialized populations, some of you may teach primarily international students, some of you may work with a student that is maybe a student leader. You may work with someone who has shared with you getting an accommodation through the Student Accessibility Services Office, so Miranda would be a good person to contact. So if you have that relationship, don't feel like you have to just call Derek or I. You're welcome to call anyone here who is on the care team. If you have questions and want to talk about how to proceed with a situation. All right. Whoops, I need to stop. I'm going to turn this part off. Okay. Any questions so far? I know I'm doing a lot of talking at you, but usually questions come up when I share the reporting tool. All right. So this is the care incident report form. This also is the form that you would use if there was a student conduct issue, if you knew it was a student conduct violation or something with the code of conduct. If you're not sure, that's okay too. You don't have to get out the code and start running through it, but it is listed here. But this would be the same form. If you have a concern about a student or there was an incident in class. Sometimes, has anyone ever had an incident in class where they thought, Bob, have you? I'm guessing by your eyes you maybe have.
Well, I teach classes of 80 students.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So, but
statistical odds.
Things happen, right?
I've actually had physical altercations in my class.
Yeah. So this would be where you would submit that. Also, safety and security would be, of course, you may be calling safety and security. They're going to want their own, report too. So. The great thing about safety and security, their reports will come to us. So sometimes if you file with them, it may be we merge them or you write one report and it comes to us. So yeah, students do, sometimes become physical. So this would be also the place you would want to, you'd probably be calling safety and security, but this may be a place where you share that information too. So if you have a concern about a student or you think that may be a conduct issue, this would be where you go. And we list a little bit about situations of concern, but what they may include, but they're not limited to. Much of what you talked about, student interactions that you have concerns about, vandalism, concerning communication. Students are withdrawn in class, head down, not responding when you call on them. They may share they have a mental health condition. They may share. I've had 2 students in the last week email me about deaths in the family, impacting their work, family issues and concerns. Could be substance use. Has anyone ever shared with you that they use substances? It happens. It could also be thoughts of suicide or harm to others. And these are, there may be times where you're calling the counseling center right away because it's, in the moment and imminent risk. We'll talk a little bit about that. But sometimes students email us things that may not directly express imminent risk, but there's sort of a vague, sort of ideation that makes you wonder, maybe someone else should know about that. That's when you want to file a care report for sure. Students also are hungry and have housing insecurities, so it may be they're disclosing that to you as well. And these would be examples of what you'd want to share with the college or share with the care team, I should say. All right. A couple things. So some of you talked about things that may be under the college's Title IX policy. which is a whole nother training. I can't get too much into that. Mariko's the expert on campus around Title IX. But if for some reason you think this is more related to gender discrimination, domestic violence, dating violence, sexual harassment, or sexual assault, we give you the link to the Title IX page. It is almost identical to our page. It all goes into the same system. So if for some reason you're just like, I don't know, I just want someone to know what's going on, we will change it for you. Like if you're just like, I don't know what this is, I'm not quite sure, still fill out this form. If we decide it's more Title IX or conduct, we'll move it over for you. You don't have to get too bogged down into the nuances of that. But if you're like, oh yeah, this is definitely domestic violence, or oh yeah, someone shared that they are experienced a sexual assault, you may want to go to the Title IX page. And then with academic dishonesty, there is a separate reporting page for that as well. But again, we have 17 pages we could go to. So if for some reason you realize, oh, this is really academic dishonesty, we share the link with you as well, so you can do that. But again, they tend to all go into the same database, and we can label them and sort them as they go. All right. And if you have any reservations or hesitation to file a report, as I've shared earlier, you are more than welcome to call Derek or I or someone else you might know on the care team and consult with us first. Because you may not want to put certain information in there that you may want to share more verbally, and that's totally fine. So if you have hesitation, don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we'll hash it out. Any questions on the Zoom side of things? I don't know why I'm not hearing people.
No questions for me.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yep, we're here.
Okay, perfect. I know, it's so hard. I'm like, I want to see you. Thank you. So like many forms, how many of you fill out a form online? I mean, for anything, right? Yeah, so it's much like any other thing that we fill out online. We want your name and your position and your title, your phone number. If you teach online or off campus, you don't have an office here on campus, if you feel comfortable sharing your mobile phone or the phone that you use, to communicate regularly with people, you can put that number in there if you feel comfortable. And you can also note, that it's a mobile phone here. Your email address, we do prefer your college email address. I will not communicate with someone and their Shoreline address. So we want your Shoreline email address. Also, you don't have to put in your physical address. I mean, if you're working on off campus, you can just put online, or if you have an office number, you can just put your office number there. The nature of this report, there's some categories. There's concerning or disruptive behavior, there's threatening behavior, and there's also a student welfare concern. Sometimes behaviors are all of the above, right? But we do this to sort of get a sense for what your perception is. It's more about what your perception is versus what it really is, or what it could be, because that helps inform us about the sense of urgency and sort of how we might respond. So if you are feeling like it's threatening, that's okay. You can mark that. We want to know what your perception is. If you think it's more of a, I'm worried about the student, maybe someone needs to reach out to them, they told me, they haven't eaten in a couple days, or they look like they haven't showered in a week, it may be that it's more of a student welfare concern. Or again, if there's that concerning behavior, maybe there's a student that just continuously blurting out in class, right? Not seeming like they could manage themselves, from blurting out or talking out when they're not called on. That could even be something that we've seen before. So you decide what you think the nature of this report is. And again, it's more not for us, but to get a sense for what your perception is. And then same with the second question, the urgency of this report. Again, this is your perception. You may mark severe. I may read it and think, I'm not quite sure why, but I'm going to reach out to you sooner than later and ask you, why do you think this is severe? And get your take on it. Because again, there's a lot that you may not share in the description of what you've observed or experienced, and I want to get more of the details to find out, why is this severe? If I'm not seeing it right away, like oftentimes people will write something, I'm like, oh yeah, that's something we need to attend to right now, but sometimes I'm kind of like, I'm not sure. And that's going to, again, just generate a phone call saying, hey, if you could tell me more about what happened, I'd like to just get a better sense for, what the experience was. So does that make sense? Yeah. So what your perception of that is. There's no right or wrong answer there. Date of incident. Don't get too hung up on that. How many of you have had a student that you've been trying to manage for a few weeks and then it hits a pinnacle, right? So it's been like 7 days. It's been many days that I've been dealing with this, right? So just put in the last day that you recall, interfacing or interacting with the student. Maybe it was an email that you got, or the last day you remember reminding the student of something. Don't get too hung up on that. The time. The location, there are both on-campus and off-campus locations on campus, including like the bus stop, Greenwood Avenue even, homestay. It could be a parking lot on campus. We get altercations all the time. Could be in the dog park. Could be online. There's an online where you can, right here, online. Or a student maybe shares something that happened at another student's house. So the incident happened at an off-campus, location. Just do your best. Again, this is not graded, so do your best with what information you have. We sometimes don't always have that information. And then your specific location. So if it was in Foss, it was in your office in Foss, then, what was your room number? Or maybe it was the hallway in Foss. This is where, tell us who you're concerned about. As much information as you have, the better. And I would say the most important thing, if you know they're a student, sometimes people file reports and they don't have a student ID number because they don't know the person. They don't know if they're a student. They're not in a situation where they can get a student ID number. We had one come in like that yesterday. So if you have a student ID number, that's the best, because we do have students with duplicate names. And so that would help us make sure we're identifying the right person. But you may not have that information. So do your best to fill out what you know here. If you have the student ID number, if they are indeed a student, we can get all this other information, the email address and phone number and all of that, because we can look it up. But it may be someone you're concerned about that, again, you don't know if they're a student, maybe they're not. We have public spaces on campus where we have members of the public here. And you may observe something just walking by, which happens. People file reports often for something they observe walking across campus. They don't know the student, they have a description, time of day, and location, and that's it. So thinking about that. If you want to add another person, if it involved multiple people, you just click on the add another person or add another, and it will generate another box. And you could add 100 people if you wanted to. If it was a basketball game and something happened and there were lots of people involved, you could potentially add a lot of people. But hopefully that won't happen. Does that make sense? Okay. Any questions online?
Nope, none for me.
Great, thank you. And don't hesitate if you need to share something. I'm happy to answer. I'm sure it's a question everyone else has.
Okay.
Okay. So this, I think, is probably the second most important piece. The detailed description of what happened. And if you can be as specific as possible, that is really good. That helps us know more about what occurred. And I know, though, that there's sometimes information people might not feel comfortable sharing on, an online platform, and that is okay as well. when we get a report, we touch back with you pretty quickly. So we will be calling you or reaching out to you to say, can we talk for a minute and get a little bit more information. So don't feel like you have to write pages and pages of what you experienced or what you observed, but be specific, be concise, be objective. If people share information with you, like they share that they have a diagnosis of anxiety or depression, you can say things like student reported. They have a diagnosis of anxiety or depression. I just urge you to not make assumptions or to diagnose people. Just again, because we want to be mindful of bias and what we're reading into situations. Using that objective language, I use the phrase student reported about 100 times when I write clinical notes. I just stay very clear on and use quotations like this is what the student shared with me, and this is this is what they said. I leave my assumptions and my judgment and what I think might be happening out of it. It's hard because that's what we do. I mean, we make judgments all the time about people and their behavior. But again, when I'm writing more formally, I do think about how I write is I think how would the student could read this. How would they feel if they read certain things about themselves. So that's what I think about when I'm writing reports like this. And if there are concerns about threats or comments related to self-harm or harm to others, or suicide, thoughts of suicide, a plan of suicide, an intention of suicide, we want to know about that. And if you felt like there was imminent risk, that would be something where you would be calling safety or security or 911 or the crisis line. I gave everyone a green card in the room. Online, if you go to the Counseling Center's webpage, there's I'll go to it at the end, but all the crisis line information that you might need if you ever needed to contact emergency response. But if you're feeling like it's not imminent risk, this is the place where you could share that and we would move back. Has anyone ever written a report kind of like this, where you had to be a bit more objective, formal, specific? I'm sorry? Just one. Yeah, just one. Yeah. So did it take a lot of time, or was it
This part took a lot of time.
Yeah. Was it, and why?
Pardon me. I inhaled my water. I think I was trying to be as objective as possible, and that is sometimes challenging. Sharing the information that is actually thinking about how it's viewed from an outside perspective and trying not to make it a personal issue becomes really challenging.
Yeah, so we may care about the student, right? Which can make it hard to be objective. We may worry about how others will perceive what's written. We may be activated. Maybe whatever is happening for the student or what we experienced is kind of got us not so objective, right? It's got us activated. So yeah, it can sometimes take some time to sort of think about how you want to write it. Recalling the details can be difficult, especially if it's a situation where if there's physical aggression or altercations. I mean, your adrenaline's up. It's hard to remember sometimes the details, because that's what our body does. So it has its nuances for sure. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Anything online? Has anyone written something where they had to be pretty specific and objective?
No, not me.
Okay, thank you. So just thinking about that, As a clinician, I have to write case notes, and that it's funny. They don't really teach you that in graduate school. I had to kind of figure out my method to how I would say things very concisely and not put too much in, but just enough, and yeah, so it can be tricky. But don't hesitate, like I said, to call for a consultation, or if there's something you really don't want to put in writing, that's okay, and we can talk about it and kind of go from there. So, and I don't want this to be taxing for anyone. I appreciate everyone's time, and so put in what you can, and we'll get the details. But again, just being really mindful about what you write in terms of it, withholding judgment, staying as objective as you can, really noting sort of the sequence of events. And yes.
One thing that I used to do as a mental health clinician.
Uh-huh.
I kind of like the whole DAC notes being the data than your personal assessment, because I do feel like you want to share like your impressions or how you felt about it, because sometimes that's like intangible but really important. So I do like to say, here's the specifics, and then this is how it felt. And sometimes that can give people an inclination as to, and I shared like what exactly would the plan would be, or like what I would like to see happen. Yeah, just to be really mindful about making sure that you write about how you felt, your experience, like how, if it made you concerned, if it made you scared, if it made you feel threatened, like those are, those are your feelings. I just would be really mindful to not make opinions about what the other person might be experiencing. Just to, again, staying very objective on these are the facts. All right, great. So we're almost to the bottom. Was campus safety or security called? Has anyone ever had to call campus safety? Yeah, Bob, I think if you had physical altercations, that's probably the case. Yeah, so sometimes we have to call safety and security to support us and support our students. Or sometimes, has anyone ever had to call emergency response because maybe a student was hurt, or or a staff member? So sometimes we've had to call, or even in my personal life, I was walking down a road and saw, a really awful accident happen. I had to, call first response. So, thinking about that, maybe you don't know. And then what action do you want to be taken? And much like our person, I'm sorry, I can't see names because the writing's too small, talked about like, what would I like to see happen? I'd like you to proceed. That's one option. Like, I'm handing this off, and we will, bless you, we will touch back with you before we reach out to the student. Like, you will know that we're reaching out to the student, or who may be. We may ask you to be that person. It may be something like, student did share feelings of anxiety and depression. That wouldn't necessarily be a reach out from the counseling center if there's no sort of risk involved. It would be, we have a template email that we send to you that you're welcome to tailor, that says, that student felt comfortable to share that with you. Could you please share these resources with that person? That they know that there's counseling services on campus. Even if you do share the resources, because a lot of you are amazing at a referral already, but we still like to get it in writing. Like, you may say, oh yeah, I told them about the counseling center, and then I still ask that, could you also send it in an email, just so that we're covering all our bases and making sure that person has a lot of different resources they might be able to access. You'd like to consult on next steps, please contact me before taking action. Like I said, I contact people either way. I don't want anyone to be surprised, you or the person we're reaching out to. So we'll consult with you. Very rarely have we taken action without consultation, and the only time I could think that we did it once was because of imminent risk. We had to act. But most, like I said, it's like once that happened. And then, or I've addressed the concern. Again, many of you are amazing at doing referral or getting the student connected to where they need to get connected, and you're just submitting this as an FYI. And I say, feel free to use this as a documentation tool. Don't think something so small or minor that it's too minor to follow for. It could be just an FYI. I'm documenting this, and a lot of faculty do. We're noticing now.
I'm documenting this, I handled it, but I'm documenting it because if it happens again in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I want it to be documented, that maybe there's a trend emerging or there's a pattern of behavior. So, and then if you've addressed it with the student, just share with us how you addressed it. Questions on that? Yes?
This might be moving forward a little bit, but when we talk about some of the events or concerns that we've experienced as faculty and staff on campus, the mental health concerns, a lot of times for my students who share those with me, they are directly related to how they're doing in my class. And so is this, when we're reporting or giving early alerts, is it something where we should do both, or because they're not the same thing, but they're very closely connected?
Yes. So eventually early alerts are going to be on this system as well. It hasn't quite moved there. But Jen Coogan, who manages early alerts, she's on the care team. So sometimes people will file what seems more like an early alert and we'll just give it to her and she'll manage it. Other times it is that. It's both, right? It's like, yeah, we need to do a soft handoff with counseling, but we also need to loop back with the student maybe around academics. And so I'd say for right now they are, early alert to me though wouldn't address the mental health piece, right? Exactly. So I would maybe still do the early alert for the academic piece. Because I'd hate to be the day that Jen doesn't come to the meeting, right? So, and then I would address the mental health piece on the care team. So do two. Yeah, sorry, I don't mean to create more work, and eventually, hopefully, it's all going to be more streamlined. So, but yeah. I think there was that was your question. Yeah, I know there's a lot of moving parts here for sure. And sometimes we get these reports, and Mariko, she's our Title IX coordinator. It's like, oh, this is Title IX. This, or rarely is it go to conduct. Often it could border conduct, but we have that intervention. Because none of us want a student to go to conduct. But there are times where it's like, oh no, that was clearly that person has crossed that line. But we often have that resetting of expectations when it comes through. If parties are amenable, we'll have that resetting of expectations. But once in a while there is nope, that's a clear line that we cannot retreat from. So yeah. Any questions so far online?
Still doing okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, and at the end, oh my gosh, we're almost at the end. You do have to understand that we all have a work-life balance, or we pretend to have one. And so we are monitoring these Monday through Friday during, kind of general work hours. I know all of us are probably working at hours beyond this scope, and but we just want you to know, if for some reason you think, well, this is not something that could wait over the weekend, then we're going to say, call safety and security, contact 911, the crisis connections, depending on, what your concern is. And really if it's imminent risk to harm to self or to others, that's really the only reason, you would initiate that action. And because students write stuff to us now, right? Like we do get things from them at 2 o'clock in the morning, and if we're checking at that time, then we're kind of on the hook, right? So, so another reason maybe for some work-life balance. And then if you have anything you want to attach, documents, email, a picture, screenshot, whatever that looks like, you got lots of room to do that as well. And then it does make you do that CAPTCHA, I'm not a robot thing. And then this is really important. If you'd like a copy of your report, click this button. I get this report right away when you hit the submit button. It comes to my inbox. It comes to Derek's inbox as well. If we're out like on holiday or somewhere, we assign someone else as well. There's always 2 people getting it. And so I will glance at stuff, and if I feel like, there's a sense of urgency, again, it just sort of depends on what the report is and then how we're responding. I'm going to talk about that next. And then you hit submit. So I know it kind of looks daunting, but if you ever have to file one, just do your best. It's not going to be graded, and like I said, we will touch back with you all and get more information. Because I myself would, writing one would expect to, get a touch back and give more info.
Are we expected to, or would you recommend filing a report if we act on something that's severe and has to be acted at on that moment?
Yes. Yeah, we still like to know about it. So maybe after the dust is settled, if you could, that would help us.
I often, one of the things I do is I do a study abroad program every year. And I take 20 students there, and occasionally I send students back because of inappropriate behavior.
This would be a perfect place to document that.
The decision's been made, and
Totally.
I spell out what behaviors are unacceptable. And then the last one was because of sexual harassment, and it was bordered on sexual assault. And that student was sent on an airplane within a half an hour after it happened back home, but then Marika took over.
Yep.
I called her, but should I have then filed a report?
Yeah, we would.
I mean, is that something you would like?
Yes.
If it's done, because I handed it over to Marika and filed a report with her, but still we should do that.
Well, if it's Title IX, then it's Title IX, and Marika will address the resources the student needs and the care the student needs. So often, Marika will contact the care team just to say she won't give details, but she'll say this is a student that needs to be.
But other behaviors that aren't not Title IX.
Yes.
So I've also had some issues of mental health.
Yep.
But also, when study abroad sometimes amplifies.
Definitely.
And also substance abuse. It just got sent back because it endangered them and the others on the trip.
Yeah. No, and I agree. You have some autonomy and decision making in that, and which fully we don't want to mess with. So do take your action, but we would love to know about it because we may have to loop back with the student when they return, or again maybe that student's been on the radar for another reason, or they may be in the radar on the future. And so again, we want to see those patterns of behavior. Yeah, and it does help us when we're communicating with the student. If there is a pattern, we have proof. Like we have evidence that says, hey, this isn't like a one-time problem. This has, been happening kind of consistently over a few quarters. So, and again, I don't want to have, those conversations are few and far between, right? Most of our care team reports are, something we can remedy pretty quickly. But there are some where it's consistently been a concern, and it's been a concern around campus. Yeah, so yeah, thank you. And we will, if you call me for a consultation, I will say, I'm going to send you the link to the care team report, so that you can fill that out. Because I want to hear the report in your words. Because again, I want your perception. I want to know what your experience is. Because what your experience is does influence how we respond. So I think that's important. All right. So we're almost to the end, and I would like to talk a little bit about what happens. So I've shared a little bit, but when a care team report comes in, Derek and I get a copy, and if it's low level, if it's something that's not needing like attention today or attention tomorrow, it could be that, say it's Thursday. We meet every Tuesday at 3 o'clock. No matter what, we're all there at 3 o'clock on Tuesday. So a lot of times I'll email the reporter right away, and I'll say thank you for sending a report. I'll be in touch, or I'll say we meet on Tuesday at care team. We'll connect with you after our meeting. If it's a little bit more moderate attention, then I will reach out to the person right away and get a bit more information, and then bring that information to care team. So that we can make some decisions in real time. Often we're acting in the, as the report comes in, we're responding, we're acting, and then we end up at care team and say, this is what we did. So, and if it's urgent, if it's something that needs immediate attention, then we are responding. And we can't always share all of the ways that we're responding, especially if it comes out of the counseling center. There's confidentiality that we need to abide by. But we do, share need to know We may need to use you as a conduit, if you're comfortable. I mean, never going to make anyone do anything they're not comfortable with. And I also provide a lot of just general support to employees that file reports, because sometimes, our students activate us. And, so I'm happy to debrief with people, give referrals to, your own resources that you might find useful, depending on the situation. So, I'm always happy to provide that as well. I feel really strongly about that. As a campus, we should be, making sure our employees are taken care of as well, because we are doing a lot of hard work, a lot of demanding work, rewarding, but demanding. Online, does that make sense about kind of how we respond? I'm going to say yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Lastly, at the end of, this isn't online on the care team page, but a few, or actually I want to share a few resources really quick. So in the classroom right now, people have a bright orange sheet with all the many of the most used campus resources. How many of you have referred a student to a resource? What kind of resources have you referred students to?
A lot of workforce coming from visual arts.
Yeah, so funding maybe, or case management and support. Yeah. What other resources have you? Counseling. Yeah, we get we get a lot of referrals, and which we're totally happy about.
Canvas support.
Canvas, yes, I'm constantly doing that myself with my online classes. Yeah. Any other kind of go-to places you send students? You feel like you're sending students to a lot? Online, what kind of referrals do you do for students?
Tutoring center.
Yes, the Learning Center. Or Tutoring Center, sorry. I got my schools mixed up. Anyone else?
As coach.
Success Coach, yep, Carrie. She's housed over in the gymnasium, but she serves all students. Yeah, so tutoring, disability service, or student accessibility services. Does anyone do referrals for, potential accommodations? Yeah. So on the handout, and for folks online, if you can email me, I'm happy to share that electronically with you if you want it. It's a one-page handout with just all the most commonly used campus resources with their phone number and their location. And then the other place you can go to for referral, and I have the web link at the bottom of the orange sheet for the people in the room, is the Counseling Center webpage. We have talks about what we do, so that's always important. You can share that with students at any time. But we have a page, a resources page. And this is more community resources around topics that we most frequently encounter. So a lot of times people just need help understanding mental health. Maybe they're not ready to see a counselor or go to a doctor. Maybe they just want to read a little bit about what they suspect, with being able to access anything 24/7, whether it be true or not. People do a lot of self-diagnosing by going online, and they might want a little bit more information. So we are really thoughtful about the resources we put on the Counseling Center website. We've learned a couple things. We like to vet our resources. We get a lot of sales people emailing us about using their websites, and they use it for marketing purposes. So we are really careful about not putting websites up on here that just want to collect your data. And so the help guide here is a really nice, trusted resource. No ads. No one's going to ask you for your marketing information. It's very research, science-based information, easy to use. Lifeline is kind of focused on college mental health. And then the Shoreline Library is so amazing. They have made a LibGuide. And so we've also included that link on there with a lot of resources. For folks online, I passed out a green wallet-sized crisis card that people can keep in their office or in their bag or wallet. I encourage you to enter the King County Crisis Connections phone number into your phone. This may be something you need in your own life, not necessarily for yourself, but people in our lives. We conduct mental health first aid training with people every quarter, and we have them enter this number in their phone. There just may be a time where you need to call, or maybe a student emails you something at 3 o'clock in the morning and you need to talk to someone to assess whether or not you should act. That's a great number that you can call. There's also a national hotline as well that if that's, you could put the national one in, they'll connect you with whoever's closest to you. There's also chat and texting line. There's a line for teens that's open in the evening. There's a LGBTQ youth hotline, as well as the Veterans Suicide Prevention Lifeline is the national hotline, but press 1 if you want something specific for veterans. And then 911 if it's an immediate health-related emergency. We also are really mindful. We've got housing and food assistance. We're also really mindful to not put too many resources up on our page. I think our tendency is to flood someone with everything they need. But when people are in distress or in crisis, it's too much. It does flood them. They need like one thing. So we don't list everything and anything because we know it can be overwhelming. I can't tell you how many people I just helped make a doctor's appointment because they've either never made a doctor's appointment or they don't know what to say. And so to call or to contact any of these resources often can be really overwhelming for people. So if someone needs something more specialized, these resources that we list will connect that person with, maybe something that's more specific to their need or to an affinity that they identify with, or needing a more unique resource. So just know that about our resource page. You might think, oh, they don't have this or they don't have that. But we're intentional about that. It doesn't mean we're not open. If you find a resource that you think should be listed, we're happy to check it out and put it up there if it makes sense. So and again, we're just kind of covering some of those themes that students share with us where we're like, that might not be in my wheelhouse. Or if you want to know more about it, you can certainly use that as a resource. I think it's important to think about that. Think about what is my scope and focus here on campus? What is my role? How can I help students? And then where do I have that boundary, with helping students? And where do I need to, make a soft handoff? We really encourage folks to take people, if you can, to the offices you want them to utilize, the services you want them to utilize. You may not have time always to do that, but if you had a few minutes to walk someone down to the counseling center, that warm handoff is certainly helpful. Or I walk people to student accessibility services all the time to get their packet. Walk over to the tutoring center because students just, they kind of get nervous and overwhelmed and not sure how to ask for help. So sometimes we can help facilitate that. And then on the handout that I have, and like I said to the folks online, I'm happy to email that to you if you email me. Just some things to remember when you're working with students. Here at the bottom, we want you to be safe. Your safety is a top priority. So, if you're not feeling safe, or if you're feeling like, maybe this is a situation for someone else to manage, that's okay. I am not, no one is asking you to do something that's, not going to make you feel, safe and comfortable. Work to suspend your judgment and listen carefully. We all have judgment. We all have our ideas and our impressions. And when you're working with students, they may tell you things that you would not want for them. You may, disagree with some other choices. You may not know what to do, or you may just be having a bad day yourself, or a hard day yourself, right? And not have that bandwidth. So, thinking about how can I maybe just listen? Maybe I don't have to problem solve. Maybe I can just listen and let that student know, I might not be the right person to help you, but I do know who can, and we have a care team on campus. I'm going to file a report, or I'm going to walk you down to the counseling center, or I'm going to take you over to student accessibility services, or to the tutoring center. So thinking about, how you might do that. Because our students trust us, right? And yes?
I just have a question, because we talked a lot about the agencies. I'm just curious, maybe on the specific of when it comes to counseling, do students on an average basis, like for people who clearly just need someone to talk to, do they set up like a regular appointments with people, or is this just kind of like one-time talk and then it's delegated?
Yeah, so there was for people online, there was a question about counseling services. So we are mental health professionals, and students, we're goal focused. So students do make reoccurring appointments to focus on, what the goal at present. We often will refer students to outside assistance. Some students need to maybe see a doctor as well. And it's what I would do if I was in private practice. When students or people exhibit certain symptoms, I'm going to say, I'm going to want you to check in with a physician as well. And then sometimes, student may have a real specific need that we're not, college may not be the best place to address that. And so we'll do some guided referral. We work really hard to connect people with the outside resources. We make doctor's appointments. We call therapy groups. We don't just hand someone a card and say good luck, because we know that students don't call. So we do a lot of guided referral as well. So we also do career exploration. So we're not always strictly mental health. Often people will come to us for career, and it will quickly be determined that, there's some other stuff going on too. It's all connected. As you said, students are experiencing distress, but it's totally affecting their academics. And same happens with, life planning and goal setting. And, people have now stuff that crowd out thoughts of the future. So, good question. And if a student, we are appointment based at the counseling center, but if a student is presenting in an immediate crisis, we are responsive. And that's why it's also helpful when you all walk someone in. It gives us a clue that this may be something more elevated that we need to attend to. And we will even ask you, like if you were to bring someone in, I might say, do you have concern about this person's safety? And you could say, yeah, I do. And that would generate, our response. So, does that make sense? Okay. Be proactive. I'm all about setting boundaries and expectations. I love expectations. I like to believe no one can meet my expectations if they don't know them, right? And so I set expectations early and often in class with students. I remind them, and then, if those things are not working, then, it may, demand a conversation or generate a care report or both. Be direct. I know that I don't know, I find sometimes it's hard for people to be direct. It's, not always viewed in a positive way. But again, being clear, being very clear about what you expect and what you're observing. I love being very clear about observations, like how is someone acting? Because that you want to give examples to your students about the behavior that you're seeing or what you're noticing, because that's what they're going to be able to use to either change it or address it. And then follow through. Like I said, if you have a verbal conversation with a student, I always recommend following up with an email just to, this is what we talked about, so that it's in writing. Also, if you say you're going to share a resource, make sure that happens. Like I said, we're happy to help. I help people craft emails all the time, about, I want to say this, but I don't want to, say it in in a certain way. And I'm like, oh yeah, we know how to say it. We can help you craft that. So, and then also, like I said, consult and document. The thing I love about being a therapist and having a couple other therapists work in our office is that's part of our work, is that we consult all the time, because I never want to make a decision by myself. I'm just not, we're dealing with people's lives, and so I value consultation. I don't think got to put ego aside and know that you may not have all the answers, and it's great to get feedback from other folks. I hear things all the time from Gwen. If you know Gwen, like, oh, I didn't even think about that, or that's a great idea. And I love, hearing other people's strategies. So consult with your coworkers, consult with your dean, people that you work with. And like I said, you're more than welcome to call me or call Derek or someone else you may, feel comfortable talking with to say, hey, I had this interaction with a student. What do you think? And we're happy to provide that assistance. Does anyone have any questions about? Yes.
I just have one. How often does it happen that students get angry at the teacher for reporting something that?
That's a good question. Online, someone was asking about, do students ever get angry about a care report being filed? So I do personally, like in my own work, I've had to file a few care reports. I work at another college. I've had to file a few there. I try to let students know that I'm going to file one, and I try to remind them or let them know it's not to get them in trouble. It's to provide help. And typically, the student and I've had a conversation where, if there's context for that. There are times where you're not able to reach the student or their behavior was, disruptive and activating where you're not in a situation or in a position to share that with the student. But students typically are relieved. They just need help. They're in need of attention. They need attention, and not because they need help. And so students, so far, we've not had anyone be upset that a report, people have understood. Oh yeah, I could see why someone would be worried about that. Oh, that makes sense. Oh, I'm so glad, I didn't know what to do. So we do have that fear or that concern. People share that, well, the student trusts me, or, they shared that in confidence. But again, I think it's being clear about that too. Like there may be some things you have to tell people that work at the college, and we can tell a lot of times when we're talking with students kind of where they're going, like where this might be going. And I try to remind students of that, like, hey, I just want you to know that might be information. What I think you're going to tell me might be information that I need to share with the college, but I do know a place where you can talk to someone confidentiality, and which is the counseling center. So if you bring a student, to us because you feel like they might disclose something that you might have to share with the college, you can always bring them to the counseling center and we can kind of help them through that. So yeah, so I would not let that deter you. It's a natural concern, but in reality, people are pretty relieved. Yeah. Any questions from my people on Zoom as we wrap up?
No, thank you.
Okay, thanks for listening. Oh my gosh, we have 28 people. That's awesome. Like I said, we're making an online option for people to watch this time together. So I appreciate you being here. The focus was on me, not you guys. But you had really good questions, and I think those will be those are questions that people are asking. The questions you're asking are what everyone's asking about this. So I really appreciate your time. Don't forget to if you're faculty, to fill in your training form. And if you didn't sign in, we're just keeping numbers of who we're serving out of the care team. But it was good to meet you. And like I said, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm more than happy to be a resource for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.